Okay, so far we created a pad that made it move to the right and then to the left after touching the wall, what we call the lim x, which is the number representation of the wall. Now the next thing we want to do is actually start to control the pad movement with the keyboard. And how can we do that? So in order to do that, first of all, I want to have only one pad on the screen. So let me just select all these other objects and delete them from the hierarchy. So we just use this other object that to show that we can actually use the code again and again. We can reuse code and logic that we written that already works. And that's, as we said, one of the great advantages that writing code has. We can reuse things that work really easily. So the next thing, we want to create code that we can control the movement with a keyboard. And first of all, we have all this code that we write inside the update. And it's okay, but the point of update is handle all operation for this object that happened on each frame. And this operation, all we do in the code here is all about handling the movement. So instead of putting it like this here in the update, let's do it on another place, and I'll call it, okay, I'll create another function. And we haven't talked about function before, but we'll talk in more details later. So I'll create another function that will be called a handle auto for automatic movement. Okay, and I'll just put all the code from the update inside this function. Now save it, and for the code to work the same, all I need to do here is call this function for handle auto movement. So this is the function that actually does the movement, and this is the call that calls this function to do the movement. And because the calling of the function is done each time on each frame on the update, it will be called again and again, and we do the same thing. We'll move the pad. So when going back here to Unity and pressing play, we'll have the same behavior. Okay, the pad is entering, and it's moving quite slow now, because this one I think has a speed of 001. Let's have a look. Yeah, 001. We can change it to 004, and it will move faster. Stopping is going back to 001, it's into 004 for now. And now we want to start to control the movement using the keyboard. Okay, so in order for us to use the keyboard, let's do it in another function, and this function will call void handle movement. Not auto movement, just movement. So handle movement, and you can imagine that handle movement will be a bit the same as this one, right? But we don't want it to move on each all the frames, only when we press the keyboard. So if we want to know if the user has pressed the keyboard, pressed a key in the keyboard, you can probably guess this is another kind of question, okay, another kind of if condition. Only this time we look on the input. So it will be something like if, and here it will be maybe pressed right arrow. Okay, and this is of course a string, not a condition, and because of that, and not a boolean, so you don't know what to do and we get an error. But if we check condition whether the user pressed right arrow, then move to right. Move. Okay, I'll do it in string. So move to the right if can. And then we'll have something like else if, and else if, and press left, and move left. So this kind of writing is many times called like pseudocode, because we kind of built code, but don't really write it yet. All we wrote here are no errors, but this is the basic one. So this kind of pseudocode, if we don't want to see all this error, we can put inside comments, and then we can start to actually write it. So we want to check first if the user pressed the right arrow, and we have this class called input, and we can use a function called getKey, and getKey will tell us if we press the button. So you can see we have here the get key, and there's also a get key down. And what do we need to use? For now, I'll use get key down. Okay, which sound like pressing the button, right? Okay, get key down, and when we open the brackets, it asks us for the key code, what key we actually use. So key code is what it calls an enum. We'll talk about it later, but for now we'll just use it with write key code, and we want to select the code that represents pressing the right arrow. So I'll just look for right arrow, and here it is. Okay, and for now I'll do something really simple. I'll just use the prints as we've seen before, so debug.log. Okay, and the right arrow was pressed. And I'll copy all this if, and I'll just do an else if, and instead of right arrow I'll use left arrow. Okay, and then if the left arrow was pressed. So left arrow, and let's see how it works. So it still doesn't do anything that is related to the movement. Just do a print to the screen. But if you noticed, the name of the function of the handle movement is grayed out. Why is it grayed out? And you also see here 0 references. I'll save it, and 0 references and grayed out. Why is that? That's because if I'll go here, okay, it might write us, it doesn't write it, but because there are 0 references, we can guess that no one uses it. Okay, no one calls this function. So we have to call it, so let's call it like here. We'll call handle movement. Okay, so now we're calling the handle movement, but I don't want to call the handle auto movement, so I'll just put it in comment. I can use it with Ctrl/, doesn't work here, so just double slash here. So you see this in green, which means this is in movement, so this is not called. You see here 0 reference, grayed out, so this code is not called. So now on each call to the update, it will only call the handle movement and will run this code. So let's have a look. Okay, so because we don't have auto movement, the pad will stay here, and when I press play, okay, and nothing happens. And if I go to console, nothing's here, but now I'll start to press. So I'm pressing the right arrow or the left arrow. Okay, and you see right arrow was pressed. Each time I press it down, and left arrow was pressed. Now this looks like a promising start, right? It looks like it's working, and might be looking nice, but it's not exactly what we want. But in order to see that, we'll have to start to work with the logic. So we already have the movement logic from the handle auto movement. Let's do it here. So if we press the right here, we can still use this code. Okay. And okay, so how can we do that? You know, we have here the code to write the movement. The movement, we can put it here. And we need the position. Okay, so you know what, this is not the best way to do it. So let's say we want to move to the right. So if we want to move to the right, or the movement to the right will be something like this. So first I'll calculate the position here. Okay, and this is probably not the best or the most efficient way to do so, but it will work. So we have the former position, we change it, and the dir here is not important, we can just use 1. Okay, so we can just use, I'll do it like here. So dir here is equal to 1. So speed x and dir is equal to 1 because we're going right. And this will actually work. Okay, so we can use this one. And we can do the same exact thing for the other way. Just, of course, using dir to be -1. Okay, so the -1, so it will go to the other way and run. Now you can see that this code is the same. Okay, and this code is the same. So again, this is not the most efficient way of writing this code, but let's do it in this way for now. And we still have the prints, and let's see how it works. So I'll go back to Unity. I'll stop it, put the pad inside the screen, and press the play. And now when the game's running, I can actually start to use the arrows. Now if you see, each time I use the arrows, it does move, but it's moved a really small amount, right? Now even if I keep my finger down, it's still only do a very slight movement to the right. And the same is for the left. So the movement is working, but it's not working in the way that we would expect it to work in this type of game. So what we want is, as long as the key is pressed down, we want the pad to move. And how can we do that? So this is actually an issue of the if statement. What we test here is to get key down. And get key down, I don't know if you can see it that well, but it says return to during the frame. The user starts. It means only when he begins to press down the key that is defined. So basically what it means that only when the user is pressing the key for the first time, even if he lifts the finger, only then it will happen. So this is actually not the function we want. The function we do want is get key. And get key checks whether the key is pressed, not if it was pressed down, whether it is still pressed. And this is there is a great difference, because this one will happen all the time that we press down. And we'll do the same here for the get key. Here, get key instead of getting key down for the left arrow. So let me save it and go back to Unity. And let's try it again. Okay, so let me run it. Okay, and pressing left, pressing right. Now, what you can also see, if I clear it out, now I'll press and leave the finger down to the right. I have to go here, of course. And what I mean is, in order for the keyboard action to work, I have to be on focus on the game. So I pressed here with the mouse, and now when it's on focus and I press right, move right, and for every frame it is pressed right or left, it shows the right message. Okay, so it's like when we had a message on the update and we've seen it for every frame. Again, we see the message for pressing the key for every frame, and also we see this movement. Now we still have this problem, right? Because we are not handling the limit x and limit y, so let's just add it. So I'll stop this one and go back to the code. And okay, so input get key right, so it's for moving right, and I can just add a condition here. So end pos x, and for this I need the position.x to be outside. So let me take it here. Okay, let's remove it here. And so if pos x is bigger than lim x, and the other way that we done down is the same as we did down here, which is checking whether the pos.x is smaller than minus lim x. Okay, so this would work, and we took out this position. And now, this means this code will happen every frame, whether we press the button or not. The same goes here. And let's do the same. Let's put all the other code also outside. So Here we do the dir equals 1, the dir equals -1, but this code is the same when we can do it outside. Okay, and we don't need it here anymore. Now we can of course keep the printing, but we don't have to, so I can actually remove this one as well, and this one. So now the code is much cleaner. Okay, so we start by getting the position, the current position, then we check if we can go to the right or the left according to the press of the key, whether we should, and then if we do, we make the movement. Okay, we can improve it a bit, like it does this calculation. You know something? This is actually the one kind. This code wouldn't work because it will always make the movement here. So in order for it not to make the movement here, we should do something like this. I will add the else, and the else will be dir equals 0. So dir equals 0 will not change the speed and keep it on the same place, but it is even better to use if dir different than 0, because if the direction is 0, we don't want it to move at all. So again, this is a way to write it and solve it. It's probably not the best way, but it will work. So again, we get the current position, we check whether to move, we want to move right and can move right, and we change the direction to 1. Whether we want to and can move left, when we change direction to -1. And again, because this is the else if, this will happen only if this one was false. And if this one is also false, then go to the else and keep the dir at 0. And if the direction is 0, no movement can be made, so we can avoid this checks that the direction is different and then 0. Then only if the direction is different than 0, we will move the pad. Okay, so this logic is a bit more complicated than things we've seen so far. I do advise you to write it and try it out. Okay, let's have a look in Unity how it works. So let me run it. Okay, so I'm pressing left and pressing right, it's not working. So we have a bug. Let's try and figure it out. I don't see anything here in the console, so this is some kind of logic problem with the code. So I'm pressing left and pressing right and nothing changed. Let me see. So if the okay. Okay, so the direction here is 1, and if position is okay, this should be smaller. Okay, so it's just a small. See here. Okay, here we want to do movement. Here we change the movement. So if we want to do movement, so as long as it is from the left side of the limit x, it should move to the left. And if it's on the right side, which means that the x is larger than the minus limit x, we want it to move to the right. So this is a small bug, a logical bug that can happen. Okay, so let's go back to Unity. Part of our work is creating mistakes and then solving them. Okay, so once we've solved this issue, we can press the play again. And now when I press, it moves, gets to the wall. Okay, the condition is no longer true, so it doesn't continue and move to the right. And then when I press the left, it moves to the left, and going right and left, just with keyboard. This is great. This is exactly what we wanted. So, this has been quite a long video, and we reached the result we wanted. We wanted the pad to be controlled by the keyboard, by the user input, and this is what we did, and we saw how to do it, and we also saw how to create this code in a way by using this function that we don't see a lot of logic inside that. We know that when we handle movement, it calls the movement, as this code does everything we need to make the movement happen, right? So this is really, really nice. Okay, so on the next video, I think we might start with actually creating some kind of physics to create the actual game. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.